Hey guys, it's Tim coming at you with a new MCU related video for this week. Now, this topic may seem unrelated at first, but I'm going to touch upon it for two reasons. One, there were people who wanted us to address it back when we were doing our roast week, and two, the major problem does tie heavily into the MCU. With that said, let's talk about the new Marvel Animated Universe. And for those who don't know what that is, that's every Marvel animated show that's come out between Ultimate Spider-Man and Guardians of the Galaxy. The other two being Avengers Assemble and Hulk and the Agents of S.M.A.S.H. Now, there are several fairly legitimate, subjective problems you can have with these shows, ranging from the tone that they're trying to go for, either going for a more comedic tone or not being able to balance tone well, or having problems with the coloration or the animation, but none of those are the real major problems I'm going to address, though they're all subjective and they're based around what you want compared to what Marvel's goal is. Their goal is to aim for a younger audience, and while the shows may not be as deep or complex as other animated shows that were also aimed towards that demographic and an older demographic, it's not insulting to children anything that they're presenting, and it's really just light fluff material for anyone older than that. No, the main problem that I see with this show from an objective standpoint is its over-reliance upon the MCU. Now let me explain that. The character rosters for at least two of these shows, the character designs, the voice work, and even several shots in the series are very heavily based on the MCU counterparts of these shows, which makes sense somewhat based upon the fact that Marvel is really popular right now, especially with their younger demographic, due to the success of the MCU. But the major problem here is that those superficial qualities of the MCU being put into these shows, basically forced into these shows, are writing the shows more than any of the creative teams. Because they've had very talented people working on these shows, ranging from Paul Dini to Man of Action. These are people who know how to write these styles of superhero animated series. The problem is that it seems that the higher-ups at Marvel Entertainment are the ones dictating what goes into these shows and not the creative teams. And they very haphazardly put all of this MCU-related stuff into these animated series without any context or even regard for stuff that happened before it in these shows themselves. Let me give a few examples. In Avengers Assembled Season 2, they started off with Thanos as the villain, primarily because Thanos was the teased villain at the end of the first Avengers movie. That in and of itself worked fine, but in the final episode where they beat Thanos for that portion of the arc, then Ultron just shows up out of nowhere with no context and everyone already knows who he is because Age of Ultron was about to come out, so they expected all the kids to already know who that was. And I'm not exaggerating on that. He literally just appears out of nowhere in the last 30 seconds of that episode. Everyone addresses him as Ultron like they had already met before, even though we had never seen them interact in this universe before, and they never explain who he is except for a one-off sentence in the next episode. That's really a major example, but some other minor examples of this is that before Avengers came out on Ultimate Spider-Man, they had several members who would become part of the Avengers show up on Ultimate Spider-Man, this being Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, and Hawkeye. And all of them had different appearances than they would have when they would eventually make Avengers Assemble. So later on in Ultimate Spider-Man, when they cross back over with one another, suddenly all these characters have completely different looks than the last time we saw them, including different colorations. And no explanation is ever given for why all these characters look different. And that is a minor example of how they do this, because they get even more egregious with this later. Having the Guardians of the Galaxy show up, having both different appearances, sort of doing their own thing, but also sort of based off the comic version, them having different voice actors, and then after Guardians of the Galaxy came out, and then the animated series was announced, all of a sudden they show up on these other shows with brand new appearances and voice actors for absolutely no reason. And this happens all the time on all of these shows, especially when new shows come out and they're not in any way constrained to being inside of this universe. they're allowed to do whatever they want to, so long as it's close to the MCU version, and pretty much ignoring what's happened in the animated universe so far. So now everything changes retroactively instead of being one flowing narrative. And all of these enforced changes to make it fall more in line with the MCU both make all these animated shows seem especially shallow because anything can change at any time, so why bother getting invested in it? And there's absolutely no internal consistency within it, so what's even the point of them making it a universe? They're more concerned with both marketing off of the MCU to make their shows more viewed, and then, on the flip side, using these shows to market the MCU to children because they're the ones buying the toys and they'll be able to get their parents to go take them to see these movies so they'll buy more tickets. And it hurts these shows in the long run because they feel like total non-entities. They're just solely there to market the MCU and vice versa. But that's the major problem as I view it. So, until next time, remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next MCU-related video.